Bonjour. Bonjour, étudiant de français. Comment allez-vous? Okay, so you notice I'm starting today's presentation with just a little bit more French than usual. So little by little, we'll try to build in more words, vocabulary, expressions, so you start to hear the language little by little, more and more. And so what I told you was, hello, French students, how are you doing? Bonjour, étudiant de français. Comment allez-vous? Hey, so as you can see, what we'll be talking about in this kind of short video, mini video, on the chapitre préliminaire, we're going to be describing ourselves. So at the top here, it says, moi, je. And I think probably all of us have heard of the word moi in French before, and it simply means me. Okay? And je is a subject pronoun. All that means is that it's a pronoun that stands in place for someone who's doing something. So, moi, je, me, I. Okay, me, I am. So we're going to be describing ourselves in this video. So we're going to learn a couple of different expressions on this slide to be able to do that. And you're going to see in French that there are two ways to describe yourself. One if you are male, other if you are female. So we learned this in the previous video, that je suis means I am. So one of the most basic expressions we need to be able to talk about ourselves. And remember that when you have ne and pas before and after a verb, it just turns it into not. It turns it into the opposite. So if I say je suis, I am, and then I would like to say I'm not something, I can say je ne suis pas. Notice that I kind of compress this a little bit. Instead of saying je ne suis pas, which might sound overly careful to a native French speaker, I'm going to say je ne suis pas. And that will sound a little bit more natural. In fact, I remember when I was first teaching English to international students years ago, and I was trying to speak French with some students of mine from West Africa. And they actually told me, they were kind of laughing a little bit and saying, hey, your French is too careful. It's too, don't be so exact and so precise. You can relax a little bit. And I think it was good advice. So from here on out, we'll say je suis and je ne suis pas. And you'll probably sound a lot more relaxed and a lot more natural to native French speakers. And you'll actually understand them better too, if your ears are more in tune with that. So I can describe myself in different ways. I can say je suis étudiant. If I'm male, okay, I can say étudiant. Notice that the T is silent at the end. And we have a nasal vowel at the end of that word. Étudiant. But if I'm describing myself as female, then I'm going to say je suis étudiante. So I'm going to add an E to the end and I'm going to pronounce that T. So it's really just a pronunciation difference, and it depends on who je refers to, if you are male or female. Okay, I can also describe myself as a professor. I can say je suis professeur. Okay, this word doesn't really matter. It's the same word whether it's male or female. I can also describe where I'm from. So if I'm American, I can say je suis américain if I'm male. If I'm female, I'm going to say je suis américaine. It's a slightly different pronunciation. Américain, américaine. Or if I'm Canadian, it sounds a little bit similar. Je suis canadien. Je suis canadienne. So many adjectives for nationality are this way. There's a male version, a masculine version, and a feminine version. I can also say where I'm from. I can say je suis de Chicago, which in fact is true. I am from Chicago. Or I can say je suis d'ici. I am from here. Okay, and I can negate any one of these just by using ne pas. So, je ne suis pas étudiante. Je ne suis pas professeur. Je ne suis pas canadienne. I can say je ne suis pas canadienne parce que je suis américaine. I can say I'm not Canadian because in fact I'm American. Je ne suis pas de Chicago. Je ne suis pas d'ici. Okay, so I can describe myself in various ways. I can also say where I live, and that would be j'habite. J'habite. Notice that with the verb habiter, and you'll learn the full forms of these verbs later on as you continue your studies in French. This verb habiter begins with a silent H, and because it begins with a silent H, the je kind of gets, I guess you could say, compressed together with habiter. The e gets dropped, and we use an apostrophe just like you would for a contraction in English. So it becomes j'habite à Toronto. So I live in Toronto. And I can also describe other ways that I live somewhere. J'habite seul. Okay, the masculine and feminine version of this are the same pronunciation, just different spelling. So if I'm describing myself as a female, I would spell it S-E-U-L-E or S-E-U-L-E to practice spelling it in French. So j'habite seul, I live alone. Or j'habite avec un ami or avec une amie. So avec means with. So I live with a friend. And ami with or without E, it depends on if you're talking about a masculine friend or a feminine friend. J'habite avec un ami, j'habite avec une amie. J'habite avec ma famille. I think you can probably guess who we're talking about here. Famille. And the double L has kind of a soft Y sort of pronunciation. And that, of course, is family. So, ma famille. I can say, j'habite avec un camarade de chambre. Or une camarade de chambre. We already know that avec means with. Camarade, you can probably guess what it means just because it's very similar to a word we might recognize in English. We might recognize the word camaraderie that we use all the time to talk about friendship. So camarade is kind of like friend in a way. De chambre probably looks familiar to you too. It looks like chamber, and it just means room. So camarade de chambre is just roommate. Many of you probably live with a roommate on campus or in an apartment off campus. So you can say, j'habite avec un camarade de chambre. Je n'habite pas avec une camarade de chambre. It depends on what your situation is. So again, we use ne and pas to turn this verb habite, to live, to the opposite meaning. So je n'habite pas seul. Okay, so let's move on to talk a little bit more about ourselves. Hey, I can also use verbs like travailler. We saw this in the previous video a little bit. Travailler, in case you don't remember, means to work. And again, I can say that I do it or I don't do it. So, je travaille beaucoup. I work a lot. Je travaille à l'université. I work at the university, and that's true for me. Je travaille pour Apple. No, I definitely don't work for Apple. So I could say, je ne travaille pas pour Apple. And notice that I kind of compress je and ne together. Je ne travaille pas pour Apple. Okay, I can also talk about how I speak. So, je parle, I speak. Je ne parle pas, I do not speak. It's easy to talk about which languages we speak and don't speak. Of course, I can say, je parle anglais. Can you guess the meaning of this one? This is English. So, oui, je parle anglais. Yes, I definitely do speak English. I hope so. Je parle français. So I can say I speak French. Hopefully, yes, I speak French. Je parle espagnol. And it sounds almost the way that Spanish is pronounced in the Spanish language. It's very similar. So je parle espagnol. A little bit because my husband is a native Spanish speaker and I get to practice with him sometimes too. I can also say je ne parle pas. Okay, so I might say je ne parle pas Chinois. Can you guess which language I'm talking about? Chinois is Chinese. So I really don't speak much Chinese, maybe a few words. So I can easily say that I don't speak that language. Okay, and finally I can use some other adjectives or describing words to talk about the French language. So pour moi, for me, le français est, okay, French is. So just like we said je suis earlier for I am, now I'm using another form of the verb that's similar to be, which is. So le français est, French is. Pour moi, le français est intéressant. Okay, so you can easily guess the meaning of this word. So many words are similar between English and French, so French is interesting. Again, notice the pronunciation. So there's a nasal vowel at the end of this word, en, and the T is not pronounced. So it's not one of those careful consonants at the end of a word, C, R, F, or L. T is almost always or very often silent. And notice that when you have an accent on the E that looks like this, it just reminds you that you need to pronounce it as E. So intéressant. Okay, I can say le français est assez facile. Okay, I think you can probably guess the meaning of facile. There's, it looks pretty similar to at least one word that I can't think of right now in English, but it basically means pretty easy. So French is pretty easy. I can also say le français est un peu difficile. Difficile, you can easily guess, means difficult. Un peu just means a little. So le français est un peu difficile. Or le chinois est un peu difficile. Le français est super. Okay, this looks exactly like English, right? And finally, le français est assez cool. So cool is a word that's definitely been borrowed by other languages, and this happens all the time. We borrow words from French, French borrows words from English. A word like buffet, for example, or filet, these are definitely words that we've borrowed from French into English, and we use them all the time. So languages do this. It's part of a language being alive and living. Okay, so these are a couple of bits of information about how you can, going back to describe yourself, who you are and what your nationality is and where you're from, also where you live or don't live, where you work or don't work, which languages you speak or don't speak, and finally describing the French language. So that will be it for this part of Le Chapitre Préliminaire, and we have just one more video that kind of wraps everything else up for this week. À bientôt!